Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. I'm John Stark, your host, and I'll be bringing you candid and sometimes irreverent news, opinions, and reviews on the whiskey industry and the products they've been bringing us for hundreds of years. Okay, kids. Ozzy's dead. Let that sink in for a second. It's true, sadly. This is the guy who outlived bat bites, blackout tours, rehab stints, MTV reality shows, which were awesome, by the way, and an entire generation of heavy metal. He's gone. Look, and I don't care what you were planning to drink today. You got to pour something just a little bit stronger today in honor of him. Guys, this isn't just the end of a life. It's the end of a category. The man was a genre, a lifestyle, a rock icon. And God damn it, he wasn't supposed to die. He was supposed to outlive us all, like Keith Richards. But now Ozzy's gone and the world feels a little bit flatter. Not to get you flat earthers excited, but the earth feels flatter. It's quieter, and it's going to be a hell of a lot more boring. So yeah, today's episode isn't about tasting notes or barrel finishes or some limited edition release you'll never be able to get your hands on. Today, we pour one out for the Prince of Darkness. Rest easy, Ozzy, you lunatic bastard. Well, Ozzy might be gone, but the living must live on. That's us kids. And the pod must go on. So today, I've got news on Uncle Nearest. Uncle Nearest, the whiskey company. They're in deep doo-doo. And we've got new releases from Buffalo Trace. Yeah, again. And again. And again. Oh yeah, and the Glenlivet. They've got one too. Believe it or not, Buffalo Trace isn't the only distillery out there, even if that's all it feels like sometimes. I've got a stolen whiskey story from our good friends in Canada, eh? Whiskey's getting its groove on. And where else but California? You gotta hear this crazy one, guys. And finally, I review by popular demand. You guys actually demanded it. You voted for it. 1792 Bottled-in-Bond. Yes, sir. So hold tight. We'll get to it very shortly. So here's the deal. You guys have heard of Uncle Nearest Whiskey. And okay, even if you don't know them, I'm going to give you some juicy news today, guys. So listen up. So Nearest Green Distillery. I'll tell you a little bit about the story in a second here. Nearest Green Distillery. They've just had a $100 million lawsuit filed against them. And honestly, I'm not shocked. But I'm gonna give you the deets. Here we go. Who's involved in this? Well, Nearest Green Distillery, they're in Shelbyville, Tennessee, and they're that whiskey company that the press has been treating like the second coming of Jesus for the last 7 or 8 years. Well, they were founded by Fawn Weaver to honor Nathan Nearest Green. I believe Fawn Weaver is a distant relative. I know somebody at the distillery is a distant relative of Nearest Green. And he is the first known black master distiller, African American, we'll call him. And he is reportedly the one who taught Jack Daniel, and that's Jack Daniel, it's not Jack Daniels. His name was Jack Daniel. Nearest Green taught Jack Daniel how to distill that good whiskey that we know of from their distillery now. Now, the plaintiff in this lawsuit is Farm Credit Mid-America, and they're a big-time agricultural leader, and they basically act like a bank for farmers and rural businesses. Now, I mentioned I'm not surprised that this happened, and I'm going to explain why. I've never been blown away by the whiskey at Uncle Nearest. For me, it's always kind of felt like the story or the lore or the legend was kind of doing the heavy lifting for these guys, and the liquid just kind of came up short. That's my personal opinion. I haven't reviewed it here on the pod because I've never bought a bottle. I've had it out at the bars, but I probably, unless they come out with something just absolutely stunning the world of whiskey, I'm probably not going to buy a bottle. I have not been impressed with their offerings to date. Now back to the lawsuit. So this lawsuit, it isn't about the flavor of their whiskey. But to me, it's also not shocking when a brand that's been riding that PR wave for years, now it suddenly hits this massive wall. I was going to say it hit a pothole, but quite frankly, $100 million doesn't seem like a pothole. It's more like a mountain of shit. So what's happening? Like the details, right? So Farm Credit, I explained who they are. They dropped a 709-page lawsuit. I guess a 10-page lawsuit wasn't long enough. They had to really cram it at Uncle Nearest, right? So they just dropped this lawsuit on them last week, and they're asking the courts for an emergency that's not an easy word to say. Emergency receivership. And remember, this receivership thing is happening now with Garrett County Distilling. We've talked about them ad nauseum here on the podcast. Garrett County Distillery in Kentucky, in Lancaster, Kentucky. They just had a massive lawsuit. I think it was 25 million plus filed against them from Truist Bank. They're screwed as well. They're being sued. They're going to take over. I believe they're going to have this receivership take over the distillery, and then I think they're going to auction it off. Anyway, so something similar may happen here with Uncle Nearest or Nearest Distilling. Okay. If they get it, if they get this emergency takeover, the Weavers, Fawn and I think her husband, they could just simply be booted from the day-to-day control of the business. They'd just be kind of set off to the side. And this is why. And again, this is allegedly, right? Because I don't want to get sued. I'm just reporting this here. Now, the allegations come like a greatest hits album of bad ideas. And the first bad idea was there was a loan for money used for a $2.2 million home on Martha's Vineyard. And it was bought through a totally different company. Then it was mortgaged to someone else and yada, yada, yada. And whoop, whoop, whoop. They just went, yeah. So first red flag, we got $2.2 million going around in a circle. Second allegation by the good folks at Farm Credit. They say they were selling barrels that were collateral and they were keeping the cash and then they were ghosting Farm Credit. Okay, not a good idea. In addition to that, the allegations are in the lawsuit, they were selling millions in future revenue to other parties without saying a word to Farm Credit. Remember, they're backing the entire business, right? Additionally, all right, they were inflating their inventory values by just, $21 million. And that's just by doing that, inflating their inventory values. It's a way to look richer on paper until somebody actually checks your math. They had missing financial targets at Nearest Distilling, according to this lawsuit. Like, failing to keep even $1 in net income for the year. And they were dodging transparency. Well, big shocker here. They provided incomplete bank statements, missing reports, and a general don't ask too many questions type of vibe. So, all of these things are alleged in this lawsuit against Nearest. So what's next? Well, their first hearing is August 7th. That should be a day or two after this episode drops. And if Farm Credit wins this round, if they win this hearing in court, a court-appointed kind of babysitter will start running the distillery. You might be wondering, who cares? Why does this matter to me? Well, it isn't just about the money. It's about the reputation of one of the most hyped brands in American whiskey, and really one of the most hyped brands in recent memory of any company. And that's because of the story or the legend, the lore, or the history lesson that we learned about Nearest Green, the first black distiller teaching Jack Daniel. And let's be real, a brand built on correcting history, I don't think they want their story ending as like a whiskey horror story. They don't want to be the pun. They don't want to be the butt of a joke, right? This is serious business, right? Look, I wish them the best of luck at Uncle Nearest. And I actually do hope when they come out on the other side of this, and I hope they will, I hope they do, hope everything works out. I hope they actually put out some decent whiskey, because I do want to review some of their stuff on the show, but I'm not impressed so far. I won't be reviewing any of their whiskey at this point. I'm crossing my fingers. but I'm not holding my breath. And in other news, specifically our good friends at Buffalo Trace. It's always Buffalo Trace, isn't it? Here's the headline straight from the New York Times, and you're just not going to believe this, guys. Buffalo Trace drops Weller Millennium number 2 and Weller 18 for all 3 people on the planet who can actually afford them. Yeah, that is not the headline from the New York Times. It's true in a sense, though, but it's complete bullshit in another. I think y'all get what I'm trying to say. So, just when you thought whiskey prices couldn't get more out of touch, Buffalo Trace Distillery, are they blind? They've announced 2 new releases in the Weller lineup. And you're thinking, oh, that's fantastic, right? That's great. This is going to be amazing, right? We can finally go to the liquor store and we don't have to mug somebody in the parking lot to actually get a bottle of CYPB or for Christ's sake, 107, right? Nope. They've introduced Weller Millennium number 2 and brand new Weller 18. That's right, 18 years old. But let's start with Weller Millennium number 2. Remember last year was Millennium number 1, and you know how I feel about that. So this one here, number 2, is a blend of super-aged wheated whiskeys, of course, from 2001, 2003, and 2006, all pulled from barrels that have been waiting over 2 decades to be dumped directly into the wallets of the ultra-wealthy. That's me, not them. This release, this is amazing, guys. It comes in a crystal decanter with a glowing display case, and it clocks in at the low price of $7,500. And that's not a typo, kids. It's $7,500 American dollars. This stuff costs more per ounce than nuclear-grade uranium. That's not a joke. And more good news from Buffalo Trace about Millennium number 2. Buffalo Trace, this is from them. They say this blend pushes the boundaries of maturation and blending. And I say it pushes the boundaries of basic affordability and common sense. This is another insult. Oh wait, there's more. Also joining their fantasy lineup at Buffalo Trace is Weller 18-year-old. It's now the oldest age-stated Weller in their lineup. It's 90 proof. It's a wheat whiskey. It's got notes of fruit, spice, and pear. But guys, before you get excited about this one, guess what? It's only being released at international airports like LAX, JFK, and Heathrow in London. So, unless your weekend plans involve a $2,000 round-trip plane ticket and a layover, good luck. It's going to be a bargain, guys. This one MSRP is $499. Well, it's a bargain, and that's only because I just told you about the $7,500 bottle of Millennium number 2. According to Buffalo Trace, these releases are part of their ongoing exploration of wheat. To which I say, how about exploring some prices that normal people can actually afford? Or, hey, how about this? Maybe explore what it's like to put a bottle on a store shelf that someone might actually see. At these prices, we could probably explore the actual surface of Mars instead and probably still have enough money left over for a good bottle of bourbon. But it wouldn't come with a crystal decanter and an LED light show, though. Look, I think most of us love a good wheated whiskey. Some of us, maybe not everybody. But in the middle of a whiskey glut, when bottles are sitting unsold on shelves and bourbon fans are drowning in finished releases and rebranded leftovers, this move feels to me, kind of feels a little out of step, Buffalo Trace. It'd be like announcing a $900 new toaster to folks standing in a bread line. But hey, credit where it's due. These whiskeys, they do sound great. They are beautifully packaged. And if you've got the disposable income of, a hedge fund manager and a deep love for fancy decanters, they might be right up your alley. For the rest of us, there's always Weller Special Reserve, right? I mean, if you can find it, behind the counter next to the pixie dust. So Buffalo Trace also just dropped something new. And it's not a 23-year-old unicorn bottle you'll never see outside of a raffle. This one's actually real. And oh my God, it's affordable. It's Sazerac Rye 100 proof, and it hit shelves, I guess about 3 weeks ago in select markets across the country. And it's only, now this is great, $29.99 for a liter. That's right, I did not stutter. A whole damn liter of 100 proof rye for under $30. Yep, us poor folks got thrown a bone from our good friends at Buffalo Trace after all. Now, this release was made with bartenders and cocktail nerds in mind, is what they're saying. They say, basically, Sazerac took the classic 90 proof rye that's been their go-to for Manhattans and whatnot for years, and they cranked it up 10 proof points to 100 proof, giving it more punch, more structure, and way more flavor to stand up in cocktails. I think you could probably sip it straight, right? Sip it neat. That's how I would drink it. That's me. And now we've got an option, a freaking liter for under $30. Now, that's, again, let's see what the availability is, right, guys? But anyway, this is good news for us poor folks. Now, they say flavor-wise, it's still got that signature Saz rye profile of clove, vanilla, anise, pepper, a little citrus, and that smooth licorice finish. The extra proof, they say, just dials it up a bit, just enough to keep your attention. It also joins, they say it also joins the Sazerac Barrel Select program. So certain bars can actually handpick their own barrel of this stuff, and the first 100 to do it get commemorative barrel heads. Isn't that fun? That's great. So anyway, the bottom line here is it's 100 proof. It's a great price. Will it be actually available? We hope with the whiskey glut. Clearly, ages are going up. Prices are staying about the same. In this case, sounds like the price is actually going down a bit. So I'll be keeping my eye on this bottle, guys. And if I can get my hands on it, we will try to do a review. All right, whiskey freaks. Gather round ye old pot still, because this one's historic and, well, it's downright, it's kind of nuts, actually. If you've heard of these cats, Gordon MacPhail, they're legendary, turns out, they're legendary independent bottlers from Scotland. Yeah. They just dropped news of what will be the world's oldest single malt Scotch whiskey. And we're talking about an insane 85 years old. Yes, 85. It's from the Glenlivet Distillery. Remember? I mentioned that. There are other distilleries than Buffalo Trace out there, believe it or not. This beast will finally be released in October of this year. Well, don't get your hopes up. There's only going to be 125 bottles, so again, don't get too excited. This one's going to be like finding the Loch Ness Monster of bottles. This is not a unicorn. This is going to be virtually impossible to get your hands on. So if you are thinking about grabbing one, you better start saving your nickels and dimes, picking up some aluminum cans along the road. And you better make friends at your liquor store and probably start washing his car, babysitting his kids, and probably line trimming his yard too. Here's the backstory on this one, though. Back on February, this is so crazy. Back on February 3rd, 1940, during World War II, when barley was rationed like it was gold, Gordon and MacPhail's George Urquhart took a wild leap of faith. Instead of drinking the new spirit, he actually stuffed it into a special American oak cask, knowing it would be for future generations to enjoy. Listen to this. Most distilleries at that time were barely producing because of barley shortages, like I said. So this move was pretty damn bold. Fast forward now to February 2025. It's cask number, I don't know why it has a number. It has a number, cask number 336. It was finally emptied. The whiskey was bottled at 43.7% ABV, and it's described by Stephen Rankin, the fourth generation Gordon and MacPhail family member, as a rare and remarkable creation with extraordinary depth and complexity. Okay, I'm not sure it might taste like twigs, honestly, right? 85 years. Anyway, to top it off, Gordon and MacPhail teamed up with American architect Jeannie Gang, known for cutting-edge design, to create a stunning decanter called Artistry in Oak. The design is inspired by the slow, deliberate craft of whiskey and architecture, yada, yada, yada. First decanter is going to be auctioned by Christie's in New York. I can only imagine how many tens of thousands this will go to. But the good news is the proceeds are going to American forests to help preserve the oak trees. We've talked about the white oak trees before. Sounds great. And so it's going for a good cause, right? You're not going to get your hands on it, but it is a fun story. It's going to be 85 years old. Once we get the news on the auction at Christie's and how much they're gonna charge for this, I'll report that back to y'all. Better buckle up now, kids. I mean, seriously buckle up, because I got a wild story for you, eh? Somewhere in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, a crew pulled off what might be the biggest Crown Royal, I said Crown Royal, Crown Royal heist that Canada has ever seen. We're talking $500,000 worth of Crown Royal whiskey. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, you're thinking, why? Why Crown Royal? I mean, if you're going to steal something, why not something else? But all right, these cats that stole the Crown Royal, they thought it would be cool to steal $500,000. And I don't know if that's Canadian dollars or US American dollars. At any rate, $500,000. And they stole it from a fenced storage lot. This is how they did it. They took a whole semi-tractor trailer load with over 1,000 boxes full of that glorious Crown Royal. Now, Crown Royal, love it or hate it, it's kind of got that reputation, right? You know, that purple bag, a whiskey so smooth and sweet it almost tastes like a dessert you'd feel guilty about enjoying, unless you're just drinking it because it's there. It's the kind of whiskey that's in every grandma's liquor cabinet and every college kid's I have no idea what I'm drinking stash, right? That's the Crown Royal we're talking about here. But here's the really crazy part, if it wasn't crazy enough to steal Crown Royal. They ditched the truck the very next day on some backcountry road. But the whiskey, it was gone. No whiskey in the truck. It was like somebody grabbed all the bottles and just ghosted. So, where did it go? Well, nobody knows yet. It could be hidden in some secret warehouse. It could be fenced off like Fort Knox, or maybe sold off quietly in underground liquor deals. Those things do happen. It's just not on TV, guys. But it's really kind of like unknown what happened to $500,000 worth of Crown Royal. Now, since the heist, the Windsor, Ontario police have been busy. They arrested 5 suspects early in June. Then they added a 6th guy, some middle-aged dude named David. I don't know why that's part of the story, but that sounds crazy to me. And now the word is there are 8 people cuffed in connection to this heist. To me, the whole thing smells like organized crime. What do I know? I just watch TV, right? But here's the kicker. This isn't just a big oops for Crown Royal or the distributor. It's a spotlight on how crazy valuable whiskey has become. Despite the glut, despite the fact that prices are, thankfully, they're moderating unless you're at Buffalo Trace. $500,000 in booze just walking off a lot overnight is a big thing. It's nuts. And it shows how vulnerable these shipments still are, even with the GPS tracking and locked, truck yards and everything. Kind of makes you wonder if some of those Crown Royal bottles floating around out there, maybe your local bar on the shelf came from this heist. Could you be sipping on stolen whiskey? Anyway, I'll keep my ears to the ground on this one, guys. Okay, hold on to your whiskey glasses. I know we're strapped in, we're buckled in. Now we got to hold on to our whiskey glasses, because I've got a story that sounds like it came straight out of the freaking Twilight Zone. And this is going to require a lot of patience. I'm going to have a lot of patience today on this episode. There's this new distillery, and I use that word very, very loosely. This new distillery is in, of all places, got to be California, right? Anaheim, California. I'm not going to say their name because I don't want to be sued. Now, at first glance, what they're doing sounds promising. They've got a new whiskey spot. Supposedly, it's got a cool vibe. It's got a cool name, which I didn't tell you. They probably serve overpriced cocktails with fun-shaped ice cubes. You know the whole bit, the pretentious bullshit. But here's the part that you need to buckle up for. This is the part you got to prepare yourself. This is where it gets retarded. Because this place, it isn't just making whiskey. Oh no, they're actually serenading whiskey. Say what? Remember, California. I wish I was joking, guys. They are literally blasting music at their barrels and claiming it changes the flavor. Look, I'm sorry, guys. Sometimes I stumble across this crazy shit and I just scroll on by, right? That's what you're supposed to do, right? Scroll on by if it's crazy or asinine. But this, I had to stop it. This borders on blasphemy to me. I mean, I nearly choked on my pour. Not because I was drinking a strong pour, which I was, but because I realized someone out there actually thought this was a good idea. And then they actually followed through with this clearly retarded plan. Anyway, they apparently think sound waves vibrate the liquid just enough in the barrel to magically create flavor. Now, I don't doubt that that's a different podcast. The vibrating wouldn't do something, right? So I'm not arguing that, right? That's science, right? That's science. But this reminds me of like Hocus Pocus, or you remember the folks? Oh gosh, what is the name of those cats in Kentucky? They were doing something where they're trying to ultra age or rapid age their whiskey. Anyway, and don't come at me here, kids. I'm not talking about actual real life ways to help bourbon age, like back in the 1870s. And you'll remember this one. A guy, you may have heard of him, Frederick Stitzel. He came up with a new way to store barrels in a rickhouse. He actually patented his system of racks that let air move freely around the barrels while they aged. Stitzel. His idea was that better airflow would help the whiskey mature faster and more evenly, and that's absolutely science. Because remember, before the 1870s, barrels were just stacked on top of each other in giant piles, like really high-tech stuff, right? But once Stitzel's system took off, it pretty much became the standard for aging warehouses. And believe it or not, we're still using that same basic setup today. This thing by Stitzel, it wasn't a shtick or phony baloney. It wasn't bullshit. It was the real deal. All right, these cats out in California, they're calling their process of blasting Nickelback and George Strait at barrels, they're calling it sonic aging, which is just a fancy way of saying we had a fog machine, a marketing budget, and no adult supervision. Now, I've seen gimmicks in the whiskey world. We all have seen this stuff, and I try to call it out every chance I can. I've seen labels with crazy age statements, celebrity brands with zero soul, think Beyonce, and bottles filled with liquid that tastes like wood glue. But this might be the first time I've seen someone try to age whiskey with Hall & Oates. Get this. Oh my God. They've even named their bottles of whiskey after music genres. Blues bourbon, classic rock rye, jazz fusion single malt. Seriously, guys. Now, the place does sound really cool, actually. I mean, if you've ever been to a record studio, they've got the whole place decked out like a recording studio, like the old school tape decks, flashing lights, copper stills behind glass. The vibe, according to what I'm reading, is actually pretty cool, in my opinion. But the madness doesn't stop with the liquor. Oh my God. They're now sonic extracting their cocktail ingredients too. And I don't even know what that means, but if my garnish needs to hear Taylor Swift before it hits the glass, I'm leaving. Okay. Right now, the only way to try this nonsense is to go to their distillery. But they say, good news, guys, they're going national soon. So don't be surprised when a bottle of Rolling Stones aged bourbon shows up next to your Elijah Craig at the store. Look, I love innovation in whiskey, but you know I've always called this shit out. I even love bold moves people make, right? Remember, we've heard things about it. Shot into space, they're burying barrels on the beach, taking things to the rainforest. And I think that stuff's kind of crazy too. But I do love weird experiments, and you say what you will about it, right? Everybody has a different cup of tea. but blasting Spotify at a barrel and calling it craft, that's not innovation. It's just a shtick. Like I said, I've got nothing against entrepreneurs trying something different, but don't insult my intelligence here. And this is why it pisses me off. Can you tell I'm pissed off? Look, I try to keep an open mind. I do. I've had whiskeys, like I said, I've had them finished in barrels that used to hold Tabasco sauce, for crying out loud. Ever been to Tullahoma, Tennessee, right? I've tasted bourbon aged at sea, right? You know, Jefferson's. Aged in the mountains, in a cave. Remember, I even reviewed a whiskey from Holiday Distillery, finished in a cave. I don't know. This is different to me. This still house out in California, they're telling us that the real secret to aging whiskey is to blast music at it. And not just a little music, not just some gentle bluegrass playing softly in the corner, right? This isn't "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" We're talking full-blown speaker stacks, cranked up to 11, vibrating the barrels while Journey screams through the warehouse like it's 1983. And that was a good year, by the way. And let me tell you something, whiskey freaks. This isn't innovation. This is clownery. Ass clownery. I would even call it ass clownery. And I've got 3 very real reasons why this is some of the dumbest marketing nonsense we've seen in a while. So my first reason is that sound waves aren't magic. Although, like I said, there is some science to it. This isn't Hogwarts. You can't just play ZZ Top, which are awesome, by the way. Saw them last year. You can't crank up Sharp Dressed Man and expect your 2-year-old whiskey to turn into Pappy Van Winkle. That's not how it works. You know what actually affects whiskey? Temperature swings, humidity, barrel char. Not Lionel Richie. And furthermore, sounds very dramatic, right? Furthermore, this kind of crap assumes we're all too stupid to notice. Like, oh wow, they played Prince at their whiskey barrels. It must be so good now. It must taste like Purple Rain. No, they must be confused and they must be desperate. It's a gimmick. It's a gimmick, guys. Don't fall for the gimmick, in my opinion, right? Don't want to get sued. And this one just gets me fired up. It flat out disrespects the craft. Look, the real ones, and I mention them every day on the show, the folks in the warehouse, the folks at the bottling plant, these folks, the truck drivers that are doing the work, they're grinding it out every day to make beautiful, honest whiskey using actual knowledge and time-tested techniques. They're the ones that deserve better than this marketing bullshit. This is a circus. This makes the whole category look like a joke, like we're aging bourbon with TikTok dances and incense or some bullshit. It's not cute. It's not clever, and honestly, I'm tired of this crap. Anyway, if you've tried it and think it actually tastes better because of the music, well great. Good for you. But it's not for me, and I'd venture a guess this will all go away in a year or 2. Oh yeah, here, they say here, out in California, of course, they're pushing the boundaries of whiskey. What I say is, they're pushing the boundaries of bullshit. All right, whiskey freaks, let's get to the fun part now. This is going to be my happy place of the podcast episode today. I've got all that venom out. I've got all the California dreaming done. And we are going to review some hopefully delicious whiskey. Now, I asked you folks on Facebook and Instagram at Blind Tasting Podcast. Don't forget to like and follow me, guys. It helps get the word out. I command you to like and subscribe. Do it now. Blind Tasting Podcast. Yeah, I'm just kidding. No orders are being given or taken on this pod, kids. But if you like and subscribe, it helps the magical algorithm and it gets more exposure to the pod and it helps. So please subscribe on YouTube, Apple, like and follow on socials. Anyway, so like I said, I asked you all on social media, Instagram and Facebook, last week, which of these 4 whiskeys I should review next. And the 4 whiskeys are A, Claremont Steep Single Malt. That's from Jim Beam. B was Ben Holiday Rickhouse Proof. Option number C was still Austin Straight Rye. And D, 1792 Bottled-in-Bond. And you guys came through bigly. In fact, what I did was I took all the comments and Jesus, there were a ton of them. the comments, the likes, and all that jazz. And guess what? I aggregated them. And for those of you with infinity bottles, that means I tallied them up, and here are the results. So the winner, with the most votes of those 4 options for me to review today, was 1792 Bottled-in-Bond. It got the most votes. It got the most likes. It had, you guys made comments like that 1792 BIB is delicious. You said all kinds of great things about the Bottled-in-Bond 1792. Now, the second most, and this surprised me because Ben Holiday is in Missouri, right? They're not a Kentucky distillery, and it's intriguing to me, and I'm going to follow up at the end of this to talk about what my conclusions were about you folks giving your feedback. But the runner-up was Ben Holiday Rickhouse Proof, and you guys gave it the second most votes and likes. And then in third place, Still Austin Rye. I was surprised by that. I honestly thought the Still Austin Rye would come in first because Still Austin is such an up-and-coming distillery. Now, they're out of Texas, so who knows? Maybe that influenced something for you guys. Some comments were things like, there's nothing better than a solid rye, and I'm a ride with C, which is Still Austin Rye. So folks were pretty intrigued by that. And in last place, and this really actually didn't surprise me, Claremont Steep. And it only got a small number of votes, and that's sad, but you guys have spoken. So I am going to take what you said, and I'm going to run with it. Now, I got a great fan comment from Charlie. Hope you don't mind me saying your name, Charlie. I want to give you a big special shout out, and you're my dude, and I appreciate the kind words that you gave me. I want to encourage you to keep listening. We got a lot more sips to share, and we might even learn something along the way. So I want to break down the final ranking like this. Like I said, 1792 Bottled-in-Bond, Ben Holiday, Still Austin, and Claremont Steep. And I wanted to see what this tells me about y'all. And I feel like y'all are leaning towards familiarity, but maybe with a twist. That 1792 Bottled-in-Bond is a solid, accessible favorite. And remember, what I do here on the pod is accessibility and affordability first and foremost. That doesn't mean we're not going to review something a little bit out there or a little bit more difficult to get your hands on, a little more exclusive, because I'm going to grab an exclusive bottle from time to time. But accessibility, that's a biggie. And the 1792 Bottled-in-Bond is such a thing. It's a release from Barton. Everybody is familiar with Barton. So I think that's a comfort level thing. It's not always the easiest to find, and that adds just a little bit of allure to the situation. But I think folks voting for D are kind of saying, hey, we know this one's good. Go ahead and show it some love. And I don't know. I've never had it before. So we're going to find out if we need to give it some love. Number 2 was that there's real curiosity around Ben Holiday. This is the most intriguing part to me. Again, I'm from Missouri. I've been to Weston and I visited the distillery. It's a fantastic place. But I was surprised that y'all were excited about Ben Holiday. And there's obviously some buzz around it. I got comments like, it's my go-to, and I'm surprised more people haven't tried it. And that to me suggests that the distillery is building a reputation as kind of a sleeper hit. And it seemed like these weren't votes from first-timers. They're from folks who know their way around the whiskey aisle. That's just how it seemed to me based on looking at what you guys had to say. Another conclusion I made is that rye lovers, y'all are loud and proud. Now, not loud enough because the rye from Still Austin finished third, but it pulled in respectable support. I think one person flat out said there's nothing better than a solid rye, right? Rye drinkers often have strong preferences. I'm a rye drinker. I love a high rye bourbon. I love rye whiskey. Anyway, y'all showed up and you advocated. You just didn't advocate hard enough. And sadly, the single malt curiosity, it's just almost non-existent. And I know at least last year, that's all you heard about, right? I even reviewed the Woodford single malt here on the podcast, which I loved, by the way. Go back and listen to that episode. It's been kind of crammed down our throat. Now the wheat's being crammed down our throat, right? And that's why I've been leaning wheat here recently. But the single malt over the last year or so has been crammed down our throat, and we've been told that it's super popular, blah, 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 blah. Well, clearly it is not popular because Claremont Steep got a very small number of votes. And okay, that doesn't mean it's bad because, again, I haven't tasted it yet. We haven't reviewed it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't at this point. If you guys have no interest in it, then why? But I have some curiosity about it. Anyway, it just tells me that you guys really aren't really interested in American single malt. And that's fine. Now, the one thing that was interesting, even though there were only 4 choices, there were several folks that offered totally different whiskeys, like Old Forester 1920, and even somebody even suggested Night Train, which I thought that was pretty intriguing. And what that tells me is that you guys really were engaged, and you're also not afraid to stir the pot. I think the Night Train kind of told me that. So anyway, maybe you guys were trolling on the Night Train. I don't know. So the overall takeaway for me is that you want me to lean into bold, established bottles with some edge, like the Bottled-in-Bond, the Ben Holiday, maybe give a little love to a rye here and there, and maybe sprinkle in some of the weirder stuff or something different for some laughs, maybe. I don't know, guys. So I do want to say I do love the engagement with you guys. Remember, the engagement has skyrocketed recently. I think we had over 1,300 comments and interactions on the post about worst whiskeys. This one had another great amount of engagement here about what you wanted me to review. So keep engaging. I love having conversations with you guys. Like I said, I'm meeting cool people like Charlie Rhodes and things like that. Absolutely loving the engagement. So I want to say thanks to all y'all. And let me mention the last episode I put out. Okay, I already did. Well, it was about the worst whiskeys you've ever had. And you guys shared with me there were over 500 unique folks that replied, and we actually engaged. It was amazing. You shared the ones you hated, the ones that kind of haunt you. I reply, you reply. It's really great to have that interaction. I love learning what you guys are interested in, and that's why I did this poll or this voting on what to review this week. So I appreciate it so super much. I think y'all deserve a round of applause. So you guys did the work, and now I get to enjoy the fruits of your labor by tasting, for the first time ever in my life, Barton 1792 Bottled-in-Bond Straight Bourbon Whiskey. And did you guys notice the choices I gave you were different and available stuff? Like you can pick any one of them up for yourself. Okay, maybe not the Ben Holiday, but my goal here on the pod. Okay, one of my goals, and I have a few, mostly I want to be honest, then I want to review stuff you can find, and then I want to review stuff you can actually afford. And that's what I've done here with the 1792 Bottled-in-Bond. And guess what? I bought the bottle myself with my own money because I refuse to review anything that I didn't either pay for or get from a buddy or somebody in the family. I will not take stuff for free from a distillery or a liquor store or anybody. If I don't pay for it, it's not getting reviewed here on the pod. And that's going to limit me, guys. I'm not going to review Millennium #2, right? And you can listen to some of these other cats. They're getting samples for free. I'm not going to name them, but you know who I'm talking about. They're getting the stuff for free. They're never going to tell you the truth. They're going to sugarcoat it. They're going to candy coat it. And they're going to gloss over things that are really bad about certain whiskeys, because they want to keep getting free whiskey, right? That's not my shtick. My shtick is accessible, affordable, and I'm going to tell you the truth. So anyway, you know what I'm talking about. I've said it before. And if I got this stuff for free, could you really, really trust me? I mean, you could, because I'm not going to lie to you, right? But you really couldn't. Okay, so I've talked a lot about Barton in other episodes, so I'm really going to kind of jump right into the tasting here and the review. This one is, as I mentioned, it's coming from our good friends, our good buddies at Sazerac, because they now own and have for a while 1792 Barton Distillery. As you know, they basically control the entire bourbon world now. That's just the nature of things. The distillery began operations originally in 1879 under founders like Thomas Moore and Benjamin Mattingly, and it went through several ownership transitions over the decades. And now Barton's Brands was acquired by Constellation Brands in 93, and in 2009, they sold the Barton portfolio, including their Kentucky distillery, to Sazerac. Same as Buffalo Trace, right? So they've owned it along with, like I said, most of the whiskey world ever since. So the bottle is a 750 milliliter bottle. I paid right at $40 for this one at my local liquor store at the Bottle Shop here in town. The age of this bourbon whiskey is, well, we know it's at least 4 years old because it's bottled in bond, right? So it's guaranteed by the government to be at least 4 years old. The proof, of course, is 100. In the mash bill, they do not specifically tell us their mash bill. Again, I wish they would, but it's, again, owned by Sazerac, so God help them, they don't tell us much. It's assumed to be a high rye mash bill, which, again, sounds good to me. I love rye. It's believed to be somewhere between 15 to 25% rye. And I've seen it shown before places at 75 corn, 15 rye, and 10 malted barley. Not sure if that's true. Again, they're not very transparent. Now today I'm tasting with my Four Roses rocks glass. Look, don't hate, guys. I use what I use. If you want to drink it out of a Stanley mug, what do I care? Do what you do. And I shouldn't care, neither should anybody else. Now, that being said, I think you should drink out of glass of some sort. That's in my opinion. I mean, just think how much better stuff tastes out of a glass bottle, whether it's Coke or you're drinking a beer, whatever. To me, you can drink it out of a metal Yeti cup if you want. But as for me, it's going to be glass of some sort. And today, it's my Four Roses rocks glass. Let me crack this bottle open. It's got a really nice solid stopper. And I am going to pour just a little of this in my glass while I continue to talk here. Now that I've got it in my glass, I can look at the color. And you know, I always tell you this. I'm like a broken record, I'm sure, right? I always tell you to never judge the color by the bottle alone. And what I mean by that is in the bottle. Now, this bottle does not have a lot of labeling on it. On the front, at least. On the back, it's got a great big label. So no matter what, I don't think you should judge or gauge the color inside the bottle. You need to pour it in your glass and then evaluate it. So the color, in my opinion, sometimes gives you an idea of the breadth of flavors you're about to put in your mouth. In my opinion, the darker the hue of the whiskey in your glass, the deeper the flavors are going to be. Now, that's not always true. It is most of the time. It is sometimes true. It's worth noting, and I'm going to tell you this every single time. Now, the color of this one, it's like a honey color, like that. Think about that pure clover honey you buy at Walmart. It's like in the little bunny, the little bear. I think it's a bear. You use the honey for cooking or baking or whatever. I've seen the wife use that in recipes. So to me, it looks like that clover honey in color. Let me nose this thing a little bit. It's a strong, rich. It is a strong, rich caramel bomb. Very little alcohol in the nose. Now, like I said, it's bottled in bond. It's 100 proof, but I'm not getting much alcohol in the nose here, which is nice. And there's a sweetness coming through as well. Yeah. Caramel, super vanilla, very strong notes. And there are no doubts here. You know, sometimes you'll nose a bourbon or a whiskey, and it's weak. It's faint. Yeah, that's not this. I'm ready to get a sip of this one, guys. Okay. Wow, getting that rye spice for sure, man. Woo! That is good. Mouthfeel. It's like a light creaminess. As I work it around, it's very pleasant. Like I said, off the nose, it was very sweet. It is very sweet on the palate, like really sweet. If you don't like sweet whiskey, if this is not for you. And that caramel is very strong here. So if you're into that caramel note, You're going to love this if you love a sweet bourbon whiskey. Let me get another sip here. Yeah, sweet, but not overly sweet. Now, I like a sweet bourbon. It's not overly sweet, and it's being balanced out with this nice oaky kind of leathery note going on. Like I mentioned, this is a high rye mash bill, and I guess that rye spice is probably bringing some of those notes to the party. And the mouthfeel here is really great. It's almost what you'd call chewy. It hangs around a good bit. Let me get another sip. I need at least one more sip here, guys. Okay. Yeah, this thing, you know how I do it, guys. This isn't a symphony in your mouth, but it is a really superb mix of caramel, lots of caramel, rye spice, and oakiness. Like I said, it even has a bit of leather note in there, which for me is a big plus. So you're probably wondering, what's the verdict? Well, I'll have the answer right after the money spot. Are you looking to update your bar or man cave with some great photographs or wall art? Head over to Etsy at famousdocs.etsy.com and pick up some fantastic prohibition, bourbon, whiskey, and gangster-related photographs and wall art. Okay, guys, you got to check this stuff out. They've got photos of Al Capone, John Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, all kinds of cool photos from back in Prohibition times. And if you purchase 4 or more items at one time, you'll get 20% off your entire order for a limited time. That's famousdocs.etsy.com, famousdocs.etsy.com. Now, on Blind Tasting Podcast, we have 3 verdict options. Are we going to keep it? Are we going to collect it? Or are we going to cull it? Now, to keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet or bar, because this stuff is good for a pour anytime. Collect it. Grab another bottle or two since you find it so darn delicious, or it just may not be easy to get your hands on. The last option is cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of 1792 Bottled-in-Bond Straight Bourbon Whiskey, I say, keep it. Look, it's just $40. And if you see it, I would definitely pick it up. Or honestly, I would pick up 2 of them. And guess what? I just happen to have some close relatives of 1792 right here on my shelf. So bear with me, because I'm going to grab a couple of these other bottles, cousins, maybe brothers, if you will, to the 1792. I want to set up a little side-by-side here. I want to taste with y'all. So hang on just a second while I grab these other bottles. Okay, so I grabbed 1792 small batch and very old Barton 100 proof. And these are kissing cousins, basically. And I want to see how they stack up against the Bottled-in-Bond. So let me pour just a little bit in here in each one of these glasses. Again, I'm using rocks glasses because I want to be consistent. And again, glass, because I use glass. You can taste from a plastic cup if you're at the Buffalo Trace Distillery there, where they're giving it to you for free. But I wouldn't taste out of a plastic cup at home. And that is what they do at Buffalo Trace. And by the way, you need to go upstairs when you go there, and you can taste pretty much anything. Not anything. You can taste the E.H. Taylor. You can taste the Buffalo Trace. You can taste the Wheatley Vodka. You can taste the Eagle Rare, and that's all free. So if you go, make sure you go upstairs. Because you could forget. You could not even know it's up there. Anyway, so I've got them poured. They're in rocks glasses, like I said, for consistency. And I'm going to compare the 1792 small batch first. And you guys, if you listen to the podcast, you know I've reviewed it here on the podcast before. And I'm positive it was a keep it verdict back then. Okay. So I'm nosing it just a little bit here. And the nose is just a little bit lighter than the Bottled-in-Bond. And that's kind of weird, because I figured the small batch was possibly older. I know back in the day, I think the small batch was something like 8 years. It had a different name, but it was basically the same thing. I can't imagine that it's less than 6 years now, but I wasn't able to find any specifics on that, any hard evidence. And again, it's Sazerac, so they don't really tell you much. But this stuff has a little bit lighter nose on it. It's only 93.7 proof, so our proof point isn't too far off from the 100 proof of the Bottled-in-Bond. I guess that kind of makes sense. It's not as rich of an aroma here as the Bottled-in-Bond. Let me get a sip. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty much the same tasting notes as the Bottled-in-Bond. You're getting the hard caramel. You're getting that vanilla with the real generous pop of rye spice in here and a tinge of oak. But it's slightly fainter, not quite as rich in my opinion as the Bottled-in-Bond. It's right at $30. You can get it anywhere. Walmart, you can get it at Walmart for crying out loud. Any day, all day. $10 more is going to get you the Bottled-in-Bond. And for me, that would be a step up. I would be willing to do that. Let me try the 100 proof Very Old Barton real quick. If I remember correctly, I think I paid like $12 for this bottle. It's a $7.50. And if I'm remembering right, and I don't have my glasses or any way to look, I think it's right around 3-ish years old. At least that's historically what it's been. Let me get a nose on this one, the 100 proof Very Old Barton. Yeah, it's just a little bit more alcohol on the nose here than either of the others. Yeah, and even fainter notes of the caramel and the rye spice. Let me give it a taste. Yeah, yeah, I mean, the youth is evident here. But I'm going to tell you, whiskey freaks, I'm a big proponent of VOB 100. This, okay, not the regular 80 proof stuff, the 100 proof Very Old Barton. The 80 proof stuff is a little more, to me, is a little more than a mixer. I had a bottle of that, and I just gave it to a guy I didn't like. This 100 proof, okay, it's not a heavy hitter. You're not going to brag about it to your buddies, but it's okay to sip on, and it's perfect for a high proof cocktail at 100. Let me get one more sip of it, though. I do enjoy it. Yeah, it's a bit thinner than the small batch or the Bottled-in-Bond, but this stuff will do in a pinch. I routinely sip on the Very Old Barton 100. It is, you talk about affordable, at $12 a bottle. And again, that was about 3 or 4 years ago. I picked it up in Kentucky at a Walgreens. Anyway, pretty decent stuff. So let me try the bottle. Let me get a drink of water real quick, and I'm going to try that Bottled-in-Bond one last time. Okay, let me get a sip of the Bottled-in-Bond. One last sip. Yeah, I mean, the nose on this is it's so nice. And I'm also getting on the palate now, I'm getting the slightest bit of like a dusty corn now, which is enjoyable to me. It's interesting. Still with the caramel bomb and the rye spice. A little bit of leather in here, like I said, and I love that. They're still there. Look, this is terrific stuff. And for $40, and hell, if you don't have the extra 10, pick up the small batch. It's like $30, like I said, at Walmart, all day, every day. And you can find it all day, every day. And if the budget's running low, and look, I think everybody can relate nowadays, for like $12, you can get the Very Old Barton 100. Okay, let's call it 14. I haven't looked it up, guys, since I did a review on this over a year ago. So I'm gonna say let's call it $14, right? You got $14 in your wallet? Okay. Now, is this Bottled-in-Bond stuff, is it going to win the Ascot Awards? I don't think so. Are you going to brag to your buddies at the next whiskey meeting or post that crotch shot from the liquor store on Facebook? Probably not, right? I mean, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to pick this Bottled-in-Bond up. I enjoy it. Thank you, Bobby, at the bottle shop. I paid $40 for it, just like everybody else did. I guess it was a week and a half ago or so. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kicking myself for not getting 2 of them. I guess I'm going to close today by giving you guys some wisdom. I want you guys to remember age statements are going up and prices are kind of holding steady. It's really a good day in the whiskey world for the whiskey freaks. Well, that's all I got for today, whiskey freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your #1 attitudinal bourbon destination.